and break things. Today's actions show you break is the law. There will be consequences. Over 5 years, while building its business with U.S. customers, Binance
तो जैसा कि देख सकते हैं सीजेड बाइनेंस की तरफ से फाइनली यहाँ पे ट्वीट आ चुका है. टुडे आई स्टेप डाउन एज ए सीईओ ऑफ बाइनेंस. Admittedly, it was not easy to let go emotionally, but I know it's the right thing to do. I made mistake and I must take responsibility. This is best for our community, for Binance and for myself. Binance is no longer a baby. It's time for me to let it walk and run. I know Binance will continue to grow and excel with the deep bench it has. I'm pleased to announce that Richard Tang, our new former global head of regional market, has been named the new CEO of Binance today. Richard is a highly qualified leader and with other 3 decades of financial services and regulatory experience, he will navigate the company through its next period of growth. He will ensure Binance delivers on our next phase of security, transparency, compliance and growth. Prior to join Binance, Richard was CEO of the Financial Service Regulatory Authority at Abu Dhabi Global Market (ADGM), Chief Regulatory Officer of the Singapore Exchange (SGX), and Director of Corporate Finance in the Monetary Authority of Singapore. With Richard and the entire team, I am confident that the best days for Binance and the crypto industry lay ahead. As a shareholder, a former CEO with historical knowledge of our company, I will remain available for the team to consult as needed, consistent with the framework set out in our US agency resolution. What is next for me? I will take a break first. I have not had a single day of real phone off break for the last 6.5 years. After that, my current thinking is I will probably do some passive investing, being a monetary token shareholder in startups in area of blockchain, Web3, DeFi, AI and biotech. I'm happy that I will finally have more time to spend looking at DeFi. I can't see myself being a CEO driving a startup again. I'm content being an one-shot entrepreneur. Should there be listener, I may be open to being a coach mentor to a small number of upcoming entrepreneurs privately. If for nothing else, I can at least tell them what not to do. On the note, I'm proud to point out that in our resolution with the US agency, they do not allege that Binance misappropriate any user fund and do not allege that Binance engage in any market manipulation. Funds are safe. With that, I look forward to seeing the new leadership take the reins. Please join me congratulating Richards on his well-deserved promotion onwards, CZ. So here is the CZ step down from Binance and new CEO is Richard Tang, and will never we again not see CZ in Binance, as everywhere we saw the CZ, the face of cryptocurrency and everything was CZ, but now we are not seeing him anymore as a CEO of Binance. So let's see what's going on here.
As evidenced by the internal chats of Binance's CCO and others, Binance recognized that its platform was used to facilitate criminal activity, including terrorist financing, but chose to turn a blind eye, all in the name of profits. More disturbing, Binance and its leaders sought to dupe and indoctrinate their employees and customers, building a cult-like following premised on circumventing their own compliance controls to maximize corporate profits above all else. As charged in the CFTC complaint filed in March of this year and set forth in the consent order, Binance made
Department
deliberate,
of Justice press
strategic, and
conference, so
calculated
listen
decisions
carefully
to
what
evade
they
federal
are
law over a
saying.
period of nearly 4 years. Binance, under Zhao's direction and control, knowingly solicited and accepted orders from US-based customers to trade digital asset commodity
Everything they are
derivatives
explaining
products
about
and
what's
operated in
happening,
exchange for the
what's
trading of
happened with
futures, options,
Binance in
swaps,
US.
and leveraged retail commodity transactions. Throughout this time period, Binance never registered with the CFTC as is required under US law. The resolution of the action against Binance and Zhao within just 8 months of its filing solidifies the CFTC's reputation as the proven leader in the civil enforcement space when it comes to digital assets. We are stalwart in ensuring CFTC registrants comply with our statute and regulations, which serve to protect broader financial health and that directly impacts millions of American investors. Binance failed to diligently supervise its derivatives markets activities and miscarried requirements to implement adequate anti-money laundering, know your customer, and customer identification programs required for certain CFTC registrants. These provisions serve to protect all Americans from those who seek to use the financial markets to facilitate criminal activities, including domestic and international terrorism. As there remain certain classes of registrants who have lesser requirements, I believe our action here underscores what we could accomplish in CFTC markets with broader authority. American investors, small and large, have demonstrated eagerness to incorporate digital asset products into their portfolios. It is our duty to ensure that when they do so, the full protections afforded by our regulatory oversight are in place, and that illegal and illicit conduct is swiftly addressed. When, as here, an entity goes even further, deliberately avoiding to employ meaningful access controls, intentionally avoiding knowing customers' identities, and actively concealing the presence of US customers on its platforms, there is no question that the CFTC will strike hard and aggressively. I want to commend the incredible work of Candy Hahn, Joseph Plott, Catherine Paulson, Joseph Patrick, Matthew Edelstein, Elizabeth Pendleton, Scott Williamson, and Robert Howell. I'd also like to acknowledge our Director of Enforcement, Ian McGinley, and Principal Deputy Director and Chief Counsel, Gretchen Lowe. Thank you.
यहाँ पे सारी चीजें बताई जा रही हैं.
Evan from CNN.
One on-topic and one off-topic question, if you will indulge.
Depends on the question.
On the on-topic, based on the allegations of this and some of the other cases that you've brought, I'm wondering whether the concern in the industry about the ability of some of these startup companies, some of the smaller companies, to abide by this very costly regulatory and legal regimen that the United States requires, whether it will mean that you can't really do virtual currency and have this industry thrive and some of the cutting edge things that Lisa and Monica just mentioned with that very heavy burden of regulatory compliance. I'm wondering whether you have a message for the industry when it comes to that. And then if I can ask my off-topic question, we're expecting at any moment the Israeli government and some of the other parties to announce an agreement for the release of hostages being held by Hamas. If you can comment on that, and also just what the Justice Department and some of the other agencies that are represented here are doing to respond to the attacks in Israel on October 7th. We know, obviously, that Hamas has had a presence here in the United States, and the concern about how they raise money, including, of course, by cryptocurrency, is something that is on everyone's mind. I'm wondering what you're doing about that in light of what happened.
All right, let me start with the off-topic. I was in a meeting this morning with national security officials, law enforcement officials, and the president regarding fentanyl, and he told the press that his team has been actively negotiating over possibility of bringing home some of the hostages. They thought that we were very close to being able to do that, but that he couldn't say anything more at that time, and I also can't say anything more at this time. With respect to the deaths of Americans, we always investigate deaths of Americans, and we are actively investigating the deaths of the Americans using all the tools available to us. We have, I think, as the FBI director said at a recent threats hearing before the judiciary, and as I've said, we are investigating Hamas connections in the United States particularly with respect to financial support, and that includes cryptocurrency. But we are also concerned about the possibility of more kinetic problems that they could cause, and we're investigating that. Now, I've talked a lot, so on the on-topic question, I will say you follow the law. You don't get a special benefit because you think that what you're doing is better for society, or better for small business, or better for big business, or better for international. The United States has laws, and everybody, including cryptocurrency platforms, have to follow the law.
All right. Chris Bloomberg.
There's been a lot of concern about how unregulated the cryptocurrency markets are. You were able to get these guilty pleas. It took a long time. I'm just wondering, how do you feel like realistically the significance of these guilty pleas are? What do you believe it could? What kind of impact could it actually have on the cryptocurrency markets? And then just a quick follow up is, there is criticism that this is not this isn't significant enough. That there might be a situation in which nobody goes to jail, and the penalty itself, Binance is able to pay that penalty. How do you respond to that criticism?
I think I'm going to call on 𝐂𝐸𝐳, who's the Acting Assistant Attorney General for the Criminal Division, to answer most of the questions that you're talking about. The broader ones that have to do with regulation, it's possible Secretary Yellen or the CFTC chair would address. Where'd you go? Oh, over here.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So I'll take the second question first. I think looking at the pleas today, by every possible measure, these are some of the most significant penalties that the department has ever imposed on a financial institution. Not only is it one of the largest penalties imposed against a financial institution, this is the largest penalty that's ever been imposed on a money services business. It's the first corporate resolution with a cryptocurrency exchange, and it's the first resolution with an MSB for sanctions violations. And the financial penalty is it's not the only significant part of the resolution. Binance, which is the parent holding company, is agreeing to plead guilty. And as part of that, we're going to impose a monitor for 3 years. The company has to enhance its compliance program and to continue to cooperate with the department. So we think it's quite a significant resolution. In addition, the agreement with the company requires Zhao to step down from his role as CEO and prohibits him from any present or future involvement in operating or managing Binance. So we think this is a very significant resolution. In what tools do we have and what should people take away from today? I think that today's actions show that if you serve U.S. customers, you must comply with U.S. law. U.S. financial institutions are the gatekeepers for the safety and security of our financial system. And because Binance served a substantial amount of U.S. customers, it was a U.S. financial institution that was required to comply with anti-money laundering laws. And what those laws say is that Binance had to have an effective anti-money laundering compliance program, including procedures to know its customers and to monitor for suspicious activity. And what happened instead is Binance and Zhao prioritized profit over compliance. And that failure to implement effective AML procedures led Binance to cause U.S. customers to transact with customers in Iran that violated U.S. sanctions.
If Treasury or CFTC want to, the podium is yours.
Well, just very briefly, I agree with the comments that were just made. We actually have rather strong legal authorities to police this type of activity. Virtual currency exchanges are financial institutions. Financial institutions of all sizes are required to comply with AML, CFT, and sanctions obligations that they have. And cryptocurrency or virtual currency exchanges have those obligations as well. And I think today's actions show that we're very serious about enforcing the strong regulations that are already in place to make sure that illegal transactions are not fostered by cryptocurrency entities. This is a regime, just as banks can flourish, meeting these obligations. This is a regime that can support responsible innovation. It's not meant to end cryptocurrency activities, but to the extent they occur, it must be consistent with U.S. law.
I'll just say from a market's perspective in distinguishing Secretary Yellen's comments about AML and KYC, I've seen and we've seen gaps in the current regulatory structure around digital assets. I've advocated for filling in some of these gaps, specifically around commodity tokens. And I do think if we're able to do that, obviously with Congress's help, we can prevent these actions from happening and not have to be here after the fact. Some of the traditional tools of registration, surveillance, examinations, they've worked well for decades in the U.S. financial system for both market regulators. And we think those types of tools around digital assets, if improved and expanded, would certainly help in preventing some of these bad actions from happening again in the future.
All right, thank you. Stefania from Financial Next.
Hello. I had a question both for the DOJ and Treasury. So when it comes to the types of priorities, enforcement priorities in crypto that the DOJ has had, there was a big focus obviously on digital platforms that commit crimes or that at least let them happen. We've obviously seen the DOJ bring big cases now against Binance, FTX. Treasury separately has also increasingly taken actions against crypto players when it comes to money laundering or sanctions violations. So in light of these actions, having taken these actions in the market so far, what are your priorities now, both for the DOJ and Treasury going forward when it comes to crypto oversight? Are you thinking of deploying different types of strategies, especially since we're seeing a growing aspect and angle when it comes to national security concerns beyond, say, a financial stability concern when it comes to these crypto platforms?
That's a great question. I'm going to let the deputy begin the answer for the Justice Department and kick it over to Matt if you need on national security.
Thanks very much for the question, Stefania. I mean, first thing I'd say is these are incredibly complicated and resource-intensive and time-consuming cases. And so we need the resources, and we're willing to and have, as we've shown today and in prior cases, deploy those resources. So we're always looking to add our resources and agent investigators, prosecutors. Second thing I'd say is you have seen, both with our actions today and in prior cases, that we will be relentless in using every tool that we currently have to deploy against those who seek to use technologies in a way that abuse those platforms, that cause the, or don't prevent the use of those platforms for illicit activities. But we always want to make sure that we're working with Congress and others to make sure those tools that we have today stay up to date, right? We know that the bad guys and the threat actors will try to exploit every crack and crevice they can to exploit technologies, to exploit gaps in the law. You've heard the CFTC chairman talk about some of the tools he needs. So we want to make sure the existing laws stay up to date. And then I think we very much want to work with those in Congress and others who want to ensure that we can deploy every tool possible to make sure that the technologies that can help our prosperity and help our financial system also aren't ripe for abuse by illicit actors. That's why you've seen us do things like create the National Cryptocurrency Enforcement Team. That's why, and Matt Olson can speak to this, that's why they created the National Security Cyber Unit. Because what we're seeing is more and more convergence of the exploitation, both of the financial system and corporate crime in the national security space. I think I'll ask Matt to come up, and I'm sure Treasury Secretary Yellen might want to speak to this as well.
Thank you, Lisa. I would just say briefly that as we respond to the nature of the threats we see, today around the world, whether we're talking about terrorism, we're talking about nation-state adversaries like Russia and China and Iran. We are increasingly using our tools, sanctions enforcement, export control enforcement, cybersecurity from nation-state adversaries. We're increasingly seeing the ability to use the tools that we have in the Justice Department from a law enforcement perspective to better protect the country by going after those threats, using those tools in new and innovative ways. So to your question, we are constantly adjusting our approach and our priorities to meet that threat on a daily basis, and I think this case is just one more example of that.
Well, I would just add that I think what the case today shows is that Treasury's priority is to vigorously pursue investigations that involve sanctions violations or violations of AML-CFT obligations that put our nation at risk, that degrade the global financial system, that aid illicit activity and terrorism, and particularly in cases like this where there are violations of a truly egregious nature. So as I've said, well, of course, we want to make sure that our tools stay up to date and are adjusted so that we can address emerging threats. We believe we have strong tools, and we've been increasingly deploying them to counter this type of abuse.
Great. Thank you, everyone.
So that was the live from Department of Justice US. So here is the 5-minute chart you can see on CryptoBubbles.net. All tokens are up, and the breaking news is, if you अगर आपने ध्यान दिया होगा जो यहाँ पे बोला गया है कि एक डील हुई है कि सीजे किसी भी प्रकार की बाइनेंस में एक्टिविटी में पार्टिसिपेट नहीं करेंगे इन फ्यूचर. दैट्स वाई यहाँ पे इन्होंने बोला है कि आई एम गोइंग, यहाँ पे इन्होंने दिया है कि दूर रहेंगे. I can't see myself being a CEO or driving a startup again. तो वहाँ पे जो दिया गया डील तो उसी के बारे में यहाँ पे दी गई है. You can't see. And here is a tweet, just read that. Breaking: Binance CEO CZ goes bust. Binance CEO CZ has shamefully resigned today and pleaded guilty to fraud and money laundering violation. His company will also be forced to pay a whopping $4.3 billion fine for years. He claimed anyone who criticized him or his corrupt exchange are spreading fraud, but turns out it was all truthful. We have over 480 plus tweet and article mentioning the fraudulent practice of Binance. We were attacked left and right by the Maximob, but as usual, time proved us right again. So here is the full tweet. जो भी होता है अच्छे के लिए होता है, तो चलिए कोई बात नहीं, जो हुआ अच्छा हुआ. So here is tip chat is live now. Just click and log in with Twitter. Let's see what's happening. Log in with Twitter. So I will show you how to connect this in other video. I'm going to disconnect this live stream. Let's hope everything go fine.